Am I the butthole for saying that my daughter inherits my house no matter what? I'm a single mom in my 50s with one daughter. I got very lucky in that I bought a home in the Bay Area nearly 30 years ago for around $230,000 before the tech boom, and now the house is worth about $1 million. I have a 23-year-old daughter, Camilla, who grew up in that house, and she moved out last year to go live with her boyfriend. I've never explicitly told my daughter the house will be yours, nor has she asked anything about it, but just sort of common sense, that's my daughter. Who else would I give it to? One important note: there are 2 homes in the neighborhood that are owned by lower middle class people, me and a neighbor who's been here as long as I have. Otherwise, our neighbors are engineers and software developers. The Bay Area is simply unaffordable if you're not in tech. My daughter is a hairstylist. My fiancé Steven and I have been together for 2 years. He has 2 young children, elementary school. He has joint custody of who I adore, and I'm excited to help raise them. Steven and I don't have a ton in the bank, so a prenup seems silly if it weren't for the house. I told him that I'm ready to combine finances and plan long-term with him, but I wanted a prenup agreement just for the house. It's a non-negotiable for me that my daughter inherits the house. He wasn't happy with this. He said that $1 million split 3 ways is enough for all 3 kids to get a head start in life. I disagree. I paid 80% of the mortgage by myself, and Camilla is my only child. She can have her dream life, working as a hairstylist, living in the Bay Area, with this house, but will be unhappy, have to move out to a less desirable area, if it's split. I spoke to Camilla about this, and she agrees that she should get the house and said she always planned on inheriting it, just like I always planned on giving it to her. NTA. You have been with this man 2 years, and he is demanding that his kids receive an equal share of the home you paid for and raised your daughter in decades before he even existed for you. That's absurd. If you're going to marry this man and merge finances with him, you need to speak to an attorney first and make sure your wishes your home will be followed in the event that anything should happen. But first you should ask yourself, if you have to go to great lengths to protect your child from his greed and entitlement, if marriage and merging finances is something you really want to do with this person. You have been with this man 2 years, and he is demanding that his kids receive an equal share of the home you paid for and raised your daughter in decades before he even existed for you. Not even an equal share, he wants the majority of the OP's primary asset, 66%, to go to his children, while the OP's child gets 1/3, despite the original post being the one who bought that house. He also didn't respect the original post, saying this is non-negotiable. OP, this is deal-breaker territory. If your fiancé won't sign the prenup, downgrade him to a FWB. He's not respecting your assets and your agency. NTA. I couldn't agree more. This is really rude and presumptuous of him. He can pass anything of his own to his kids, just as you can pass anything of your own to your daughter. I'd seriously reconsider moving forward with this. It sounds like he'd try to contest your will. All kinds of sketchy. NTA. I would push even more and say write up your will too. Explicitly leave 1 penny for each of them, the husband, his kids, etc. If you don't, they can contest to a judge, and explicitly state the house is Camilla's only. Just in case. I'm sorry, I've watched too much Lifetime movies. It's mad sketchy he would even think his folks has rights to your house. Edit, I am not a lawyer, consult a California lawyer. Instead of leaving each of them a penny, you can just specify that you are leaving them nothing. The idea either way is that they can't say that you just forgot to leave them something. This varies by locality. It's time for original post to lawyer up and ask an expert in their area. Honestly, if she has to go to such length to avoid her daughter getting screwed from her inheritance, then she probably should reconsider if they have a future together. This, 100%. Seeing major red flags on this. I find the whole idea of saying that you were forgotten in a will to be ridiculous. Like original post went to the trouble of having a legal document written up to disperse her assets when she's gone, but, oops, forgot to include a spouse or parent or child. It's just an excuse for greedy people to contest someone's will. I know it happens, I just think it's BS. When you create a will, it stays valid until you die or some other event that invalidates it, marriage in some places for instance. Your life can change significantly, and if you don't update your will accordingly, you could unintentionally leave someone out who you want to include. Yep. When my sister passed, my dad had to update the will to reflect her share gets split between her daughters, and so on with all his grandkids, in the event their parents aren't around or they turn 18. He also realized his ex-wife was the main beneficiary of his life insurance. They've been divorced for 30 years. My mom is now the main beneficiary. That makes sense, I guess. It makes sense in some situations. Some people go a really long time in between updating wills. Like it's 40 years after they wrote the will, and since then they have divorced their cheating ex, remarried, and raised a child to adulthood, but then they die and it's revealed that their will still says everything goes to the ex they haven't talked to since the divorce, doesn't mention the kid, doesn't acknowledge that the second marriage occurred in a community property state or that it occurred at all. Basically, the ex cared about paperwork, but the second wife didn't. That's the situation those laws are meant for. An attorney really is the best bet here. Probate and inheritance laws vary by state. I know where I live my spouse can't leave me less than something like 30%. So he can't cut me out of his will and I'd be legally entitled even if his will didn't state it. California is especially a state you want to be careful with. You are definitely NTA. But if you plan on going through with this, consult an attorney or your daughter might not end up with even a third. Look into the legal requirements and costs of transferring ownership of the home to your daughter now. This way, there is nothing for others to contest. You can be a tenant in the home for zero rent. I am not a lawyer, but this may be a way to ensure your daughter is guaranteed the home. Edit. Thank you stranger for the gold. Hi, this is actually a terrible idea because of Medicaid and or capital gains taxes. Original post. Please consult an estate planning lawyer who understands Medicaid law in California before making any large gifts like this. Also, not the butthole. Actually, doing it now, hopefully a decade or more before the mother needs to use Medicare is probably a good idea, as long as they consult a lawyer. Medicare looks back 5+ years when you start needing big-ticket items. If you have a lot of assets but maybe not enough to fund a serious illness, it's better to divest of them well before then through some kind of trust or selling them. You do get an allowance for one house as long as it's your primary dwelling. Basically, divesting of valuable assets isn't a bad idea, as long as you consult with a lawyer before doing so. She can avoid this by not marrying the mooch. This is definitely lawyer territory. I'm not even sure you can disinherit a spouse like that in California. It's a community property state, so even though the house itself is separate property, he'd be entitled to half of the appreciation value since the wedding date in the event of divorce, and it doesn't sound like original post would be liquid enough to pay him that if the marriage dissolved. Not sure how it would work with wills. Edit. Without a will, half of her separate property would go to him and half to her daughter. His kids aren't part of equation. She can specify in a will that all her separate property goes to her daughter. What I'm really not sure of is whether in that event, the daughter would end up owing him half of the appreciation value after they got married. Not just a California law student. And is he going to give her daughter a third of anything he has? Even if it's not much. Also, shouldn't these kids' bio mom be putting money towards these children, not up? It seems really presumptuous all around. Yep. Seems like another case of a bio parent being like, we're together so now you have to help support my kids. Kids that you didn't ask for and who aren't your responsibility. Kids that you didn't ask for and who aren't your responsibility. Surely by marrying somebody with young kids you are accepting at least part of that responsibility. Whoa there. You can't come into the pitchfork brigade with logic, sir. Are you mad? To a certain degree. I'm dating a woman who is married, polyamorous, and has kids with both her current husband and her ex-husband. The first two are stepchildren of the current husband. He takes care of them and funds their lives, but their bio dad does too. The third was adopted by him and holds the same status as his bio kid. If there's just the two parents holding all financial responsibility. None of the children seem to get more or less than the others except based on needs. And here I am, having no desire at this point in my life to have kids, so I'm basically acting as the cool aunt but dating their mom instead of being bio family to her, because it's totally an option to date someone with kids and not want to become a parent to said kids. You just have to have everyone on board with that and not get legally married and probably not live together. And even then, though I'm never going to be a mom to them, I am absolutely becoming a trusted adult figure who helps them with their lives, Today I found myself spending at least half an hour with one on her homework, because once you're in a kid's life, you're in the kid's life and you can easily find them attaching to you. Kids that you didn't ask for actually, when you entered the relationship, you did ask for them. Step parents with that attitude, not my kids, I didn't want them, are in half the posts on this sub. The wicked stepmothers, and fathers, of the world. If you don't want any responsibility for other people's kids, then don't enter into a relationship with someone who already has kids. Because when you get married, you're a team and you help each other. Including, or especially, with their most important responsibility, their kids. There are certainly some caveats and innumerable variables that differ from case to case, but you do indeed ask for those kids. For this particular case, I think original post is right that her daughter should get the house on her own. But leaving the house to her own daughter, who is already an adult and grew up there, is a far cry from saying she won't help support her step-kids in other ways. Agreed. Someone else posted the other day and it was a similar situation. It's so strange. I just have a little question here. While I agree that the suggestion was really covetous and his children have no right to anything original post makes, especially when if they'll combine finances, some of her income would also go towards raising the kids? Though I'm not entirely sure here. Anyway, the question is that in case that they get past it with the prenup and 20 or so years down the line, when original post has spent decades of her life with the man, if she is to die, the daughter will inherit the home. Is that going to mean the fiancé has to move out then? That sounds a little cruel to me. Though chances are that with his presumptions and selfishness, they won't even get there. If they get decades together and stay in that house, couldn't she decide to alter her will or a prenup to say that her daughter inherits the house but he gets to live there for the rest of his life before she physically takes possession? Not a lawyer, but believe this is a thing. It's called a life estate. A prenup can be changed in the future. If at 70 plus, she changes her mind, she can. This is deal breaker territory. If your fiancé won't sign the prenup, downgrade him to a FWB. Makes me wonder how much he's with her for a house, and to be a mum for his kids, rather than out of genuine love and affection. I agree 100%, this would be a deal breaker for me. He wants 66% of your assist to go to his children and not your own. NTA please be careful. I have to wonder why he had his finger on the pulse and knew exactly how much the house was worth. Because they were talking about combining finances. The value of the things you have would probably come up. Could just sign the house over to her daughter now, while still living in it until death. That way the whole issue of a prenup or will being contested is entirely off the table. I can see why fiancé wants original post to invest in his kids and be a mother to them, but original post can start that now, not with what she accrued before he was in the picture. If he's serious about being with her, then he will accept the house once it's off the table entirely. Yes, this. Why original post just don't make it officially her daughter's? If she wishes a protection allowing her live there, she needs to see a lawyer. I know for a fact there are contracts allowing you to give the property to someone while cementing you could live there indefinitely. This way this issue would be off the table from now on between original post and her fiancé. I mean, he said 1 million. I'd be surprised if there were any half-decent houses in the Bay Area less than that. NTA. The house was purchased 30 years ago, long before you met Stephen, and it is your separate property. I would not add him to your house deed. I am not a lawyer, but I certainly would consult an attorney versed in estate law. I have my eyebrows raised that a fiancé of 2 years thinks his 2 children should get an equal share of your house that is your separate property, and that you have paid the mortgage on for nearly 30 years. Please, protect yourself and contact an attorney. The entitlement, especially because the kids have a mother and a father that's not the 2 children that he has joint custody of. Hopefully that's the best arrangement for the kids' sake, but it means original post sees less of them and has less chance to build a relationship with them than if the boyfriend had sole custody. 2 years of seeing 2 elementary schoolers half-time, if that, and you're expected to hand each of them $3 million? From a purely emotional standpoint, no. You'd think Stephen or his kids' mom would own their own house the kids could inherit. I have lived in Bay Area. 1/3 of that house will not go far for giving Camilla the future you and she want her to have. You are passing your good fortune and hard work on to your daughter. Makes perfect sense to me. Between Stephen and his ex, they have the right and responsibility to provide for their 2 children as best they can. I agree, $300,000 is just a down payment. How in the world can she, or anyone, afford the $3K/month mortgage payment that would come with a new house? FYI, California just passed a bill stating inherited property that is not used as a primary home will have its property tax adjusted to current rates based on current value. Meaning your daughter will not be able to afford the property tax with her hairdresser salary unless she moves in. If 3 children inherited the home, then obviously it would not be a primary home, so if they didn't sell it right away, they would be on the hook for a lot of money come tax time. NTA, that's your house. I think the prenup is a fantastic idea as it is your investment. You shouldn't risk losing it if things go south. I am just floored he thinks his kids are entitled to 2/3 of the value. WTFF? I'm just happy to see someone actually planning before they blend their families for once. Make sure that prenup is ironclad, so he can't make promises to his own kids, or put your daughter on the deed now. This is the smart thing to do. Put it in the daughter's name now. This has its pitfalls as well. Then the daughter could kick her out of her own house. Or the daughter could get divorced and they'd be forced to sell the house to give a share to her ex. Prenup is the best option for Op. I don't think she could kick mom out if they're both on the deed, as they'd be co-owners, but the divorce bit might be a valid concern. Just means daughter would also want to have a prenup. Thank you for watching. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube. And share them with your friends. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. We welcome your comments below. Another of our videos will begin shortly.